Back here inside the PTN studio, traveling back from Dallas. Big weekend for the Arkansas baseball team. Joined here by Mike Irwin. Each and every week we got Ask Mike. Mike, really busy week for Razorback sports. You got a big takeaway from what went down?
Yeah, it went out all right. Basketball turned out fine. Baseball, we'll talk about that in a minute. It's a little bit of up and down. There were some good moments and bad moments. But really, Razorback fans, had to do two things at one time. We'll talk about that too. You got a basketball game, you got a baseball game. What are you going to do? They got pretty creative on that, some of them.
And maybe not mentioned here, but the most dominant team on campus right now, Arkansas softball.
Nobody asked a question about
42
softball.
runs over the weekend, I think it might have been.
They are just murdering people.
Courtney Deifel doing a fantastic job. Hopefully this is finally the year they can break that door down. Let's get into our questions here. First question of the week coming from Bama Fam in Bama, who asked, what did you think of the defense y'all played against Auburn? I hate those guys and was hoping you'd stuff them. Now their fans are walking around saying we almost beat Arkansas without our best player. They're still bragging.
Yeah, that's a weird question coming from, that shows you how much Alabama must hate Auburn. And I think there were Razorback fans that sort of had revenge in mind too, because it was Arkansas's most lopsided loss of the year, 22 points. They scored 95 points on Arkansas. It was embarrassing, that happened. I think when you really look at this game, the defense, they scored about what's average against Arkansas this year, but the defense was really good, and it shows the difference between the first game and this game. They scored 20 fewer points than they did in the first game, Auburn. Tigers scored 20 points in the paint compared to 48 in the first game. Arkansas cut their three-pointers down from 10 to 5. In the first game, Auburn shot 56% from the floor and 45 from three. It went down to 41 and 35. So they really showed to me the difference in the defense they're playing right now as opposed to what they were playing earlier. And then they had that 10-day layoff after they lost to Kentucky, and that's when Cal really got them together. So I just thought it was a good win. I mean, the lead got down to maybe 8 points a couple of times, but it was quickly back into double digits, and there was never a time.
Got closer, but never threatened.
Yeah, and then after the 8-minute mark, it never got real dicey. So it was a good win.
Never apologize for winning.
That's right.
What any coach will say. It doesn't matter what.
And I think it put them in a good position. I really do. I think it put them in a position to finish second. I don't think they can win, because to win, what are you going to have to do?
Win at Florida.
You're going to have to win at Florida, and you're probably going to have to win all of your home games and maybe win one more road game, maybe 2 of the 3 road games and Florida. That's going to be hard to do, but I think all they have to do now is win their home games and 1 road game. Doesn't matter where it is, and I think they're second.
Got Alabama coming up here Wednesday night. That will be on the road. You wonder Alabama maybe teetering a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Bottom of the top 25, the Charles Bediako thing.
Yeah,
how exactly do they come out of that? They could be ripe for Arkansas to go in there and get a really big win.
Good.
Next question coming from Mark Anderson, who says, I've been watching the Hogs for a long time, since Eddie was here and I was a kid, and it's official. Darius Acuff Jr. is the best player in the history of Hog Hoops. Let me say that one more time. Darius Acuff Jr., the best player in the history of Hog Hoops, according to Mark Anderson. I literally can't believe my eyes. He's everything I've ever wanted in every way.
It's so hard to compare him with other great players because he's doing this as a freshman, and we all know he's not going to be here next year. There's never been a freshman anywhere close to this. What makes him what he is that he doesn't have off games. He either plays really good or really, really good, or sometimes really, really, really good. He just doesn't have off games. And if he ever did, they'd be dead in the water. They can't do anything without him. They are that dependent upon him. That doesn't mean they don't have other good players, but this guy is just so consistent offensively and so consistent in running the offense that I don't know how here's what he does. In the second half of that game, there was one point at which Auburn got the lead down to 10, and he hit 3 straight threes, so suddenly it's 19. That's just what he does. He seems to step up when he senses everything else is a problem, and that's also what makes him what he is. So honestly, I've never seen a player here like him, not as a true freshman.
There's not a ton of Arkansas Razorbacks in the big 3 sports that have records. Darius Acuff Jr., now 7-time Freshman of the Week, never been done before.
Somebody was pointing out that he has the number 5, and so it's pretty good because you got the best basketball player and the best football player, both with the number 5.
If he comes back one more year and has another year like this, then maybe they will have to retire number 5 in basketball. I actually heard Aaron Torres, media personality, say that this kid's better than Derrick Rose. Started looking into some of the numbers. He's right. The Derrick Rose was a first-team All-American number 1 pick in the draft. His numbers are better than Derrick Rose virtually every category.
His SEC numbers are better than his overall numbers. In other words, he's only 3rd right now in the league in scoring, but he's way up there if you do conference play.
He's playing better as he gets into the deep waters,
right.
as usually it kind of goes the other way.
Right.
Third question of the week here, coming from Eddie Lynn, who asked, has Cal done it again? I miss seeing Acuff next season, but Jordan Smith sounds like a perfect replacement. Mix all 3 of our 2026 freshman class in with Billy Richmond, and all we need is a couple physical bigs out of the portal, and we're rolling again. If you have not seen this Jordan Smith kid, he has got a body on him unlike anything I have seen for an 18-year-old in high school basketball. He looks like a free safety.
Yeah, he looks 25 years old. And that's the difference. He's a combo guard, which means that he can run the point, he can score points, but he's a really, really good defensive player. So if you bring him back with these other 2 guys they brought in this freshman class, you've got scorers. And then if Richmond comes back, you've got Isaiah Seeley. If he comes back,
maybe
then you've
DJ
got
Wagner. Who knows?
Yeah, you got all these scorers out on the edge, and then what you have to do at that point is Cal is going to have to go out and find, hopefully, not 1, but 2 guys that can play defense, rebound, and score some. They don't have to score a lot, but they need to be able to play defense. But if he does that, they're rolling for next year, I'm telling you.
Easier said than done, though, Mike. It seems, I wouldn't call it easy to find these combo guards, but, even they find their way on mid-majors. Meanwhile, Arkansas's post presence, Trevin Brazile, up and down. There's been really good flashes. Malik Ewan, Nick Pringle, just inconsistent. So how difficult do you feel it is to find that post presence that can play in today's college game?
Well, what you have to do is look around. I mean, there are about 3 or 4 in the SEC. LSU's got a really good inside player. Auburn has had a guy that's really good inside, including the guy that Arkansas recruited and then apparently sat out for disciplinary reasons. That takes a lot of guts to do that, by the way. Bruce Pearl's son, apparently he was talking back to the coaches and he just said, you're sitting down until you decide not to do that anymore. I liked to see that. You would never see Nate Oates do that, ever. So you got to admire him a little bit.
The Nate Oates thing, and I don't know if this is on here. Did you hear what he said? That, the college it's better because you could be more of a pro in college because the money's better?
Yeah.
He said that, as opposed to a kid that made hundreds of thousands of dollars in the G League.
He doesn't get the whole college thing, I think.
I would never apologize to coach trying to make my team better, but that explanation was kind of garbage. Next question here from Clark in Clarksville says, Knox and Wagner getting hurt was a big break for us. Cal was forced to use Billy Richmond more, and look at the difference. What's the song? Rocket Man? That's him.
Yeah, Cal calls him Billy Goat. Now, I guess the GOAT part is greatest of all time. And he made the point of saying, how often when you name somebody, when you label somebody like that, how often is it somebody that scores 10 points a game? And he said, it's not. And he said, that's why, but that's not why they like him. It's what you said before. It's the energy he plays with. I don't like the Billy Goat thing nearly as much as Rocket Man, because what Billy Richmond does, and we saw him early in the year, he'd be going 150 miles an hour, and then he'd do it for about 2 minutes, and then he'd be out of control, and he'd go up against the backboard with a layup, and he'd bounce it back into midcourt, and you're going, hey, slow down a little bit. Well, he's not slowed down any, but he's learned to be more under control, and he's so much more fun to watch, up to the point where he scored 25 the other night. If he can start doing this every night, then you've got Thomas who can score 20 plus, you've got Acuff who can score 30, you got Billy Richmond who can score 20, 25.
Brazil's had multiple 20-point games.
Brazil can score in the 20s. And I think Ewan can get up 15, 18 points. So hopefully all that comes together when they get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think people love Billy Richmond because of the effort. Everybody can get behind a player that pours his heart out on the floor, and he seems to do that with every opportunity he gets.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why he's become, I think, people. Well, I was on the radio this morning, and Phil Elson talked about the fact, I think he was at the game, that when the game was over and everybody was leaving, it was raining out there. It wasn't heavy rain, but it was raining. And he said Billy Richmond stayed outside that arena and signed autographs for 30 minutes after the game when everybody else had left. He was signing autographs.
He's a fan favorite. You know, he plays above the rim, plays hard, energy, you know, very animated. He's an easy guy to get behind. Next question here coming from Cajun Hog, who wants to know, what did Knox and Wagner add to this game? They scored 3 points. Where was Sealy at?
Yeah, I think they were supposed to play. I think they predetermined they were supposed to play around 6 minutes. I don't think Cal wanted to play a whole lot, and I think they both pretty much did that. Knox left the game and he looked injured. Remember, he got up and he was limping. Well, you didn't see that game. You were down at baseball, but he got up limping and limped off and didn't return. But that was not addressed after the game. So I'm not sure what's going on with him. And Cal didn't address Sealy either, and I blame that on the media. And here's why. They're tone deaf, some of those guys. Obviously, I wasn't there. I was back here watching both games, the basketball and baseball game.
Nobody more committed than Mike Irwin.
But the thing is, if you're there after that game, you got to ask that question. You got to understand that the fans really like Sealy now. They like the fact that he started to play and he's got energy and stuff. And so all of a sudden he doesn't play at all. Why? Somebody should have asked. Is this what it means if you get these two guys back, that Sealy just goes and sits over in the corner for a while? Why? You know, and he didn't have to explain that. So hopefully at some point we'll find out why. But I think Sealy is another guy that the fans really like, you know, and liked his energy and all that.
Made the most of his opportunity.
Yeah, made the most of his opportunity. I think it helps that he's local, you know.
Sure.
And so we'll see. But right now we don't know why he didn't come back or why he didn't play at all in this game. I thought he would play some, and he didn't.
Yeah. When you're dealing with injury situation or new players emerging, Mike, as you have, you know, a new player emerging like Isaiah Sealy, and then you got, you know, Wagner and Knox trying to work their way back. Who do you put it on more for assimilating them in the right way? Is it in the coach to figure out the flow, whether it be in practice or in the game, and, you know, not disrupt what's going on? Or is that strictly on the player of, hey, things have changed, this is on you to change with it?
Well, I think the coach still has to control it, but I think they ought to control it based on what they see. And I just can't understand why Sealy didn't play at all. I would have put him in some and see what he did, see if that motivates the other two guys. But again, there was no explanation for that. So until Cal is asked that, I'm not sure we'll know what the deal was.
Yeah, I agree with you. It felt like he had earned the right to at least get a look. Doesn't have to be what he was getting, but at least get something. He's Mike Irwin. A lot more to come here on Ask Mike after a quick timeout. Back here with Mike Irwin. More of your questions to get into here on Ask Mike. Next up, coming from Cal Train, who wants to know, what will it take to get Pringle in gear? He played 21 minutes, scored 2 points. He had 1 rebound. Last year, Jonas Adu got it going in the tournament. I'm thinking that's not happening with Pringle. He's kind of been an up and down player here.
Yeah. Adu is that's a really interesting comparison, although they're totally different players, really. Adu, before he came to Arkansas, was more of a scorer and a rebounder. He didn't do much here because he was injured. Finally got going in the NCAA tournament. But if you study, he's gone into the G Leagues, and the same thing's happening with him now. He only plays about a third of each game, about 11 minutes or so. But he's real inconsistent. I saw he had one game he had 12 points and 10 rebounds. Another one he had no points and 1 rebound. That's the way he was. So it's not like he is some sort of shining example of what Pringle needs to be and isn't. Mm-hmm. Pringle's having the same problems. He's just not injured. That's another thing I've asked around, and nobody can recall any particular press conference where Cal sort of gave a theory about that. And so somebody said, well, I think he said one time when he gets in foul trouble, he tends to just kind of not do much. And maybe that's it. I don't know. Maybe the whole key is him learning to play without getting called for fouls. And I will say, and I've watched some of these things happen, the way games are called right now is really unfair inside to the defender, because you can stand your ground and get bumped 3 or 4 times and they'll still end up calling you. And I'm talking about being
Yeah,
outside the line. I've seen it happen to Pringle 2 or 3 times where I saw him turn around one time and say, what did I do?
So like the idea of this is my space, I was here first.
I didn't do anything to him. He bumped into me. What are you doing? So some of that may be a little bit unfair to him too. And if that's what's causing it, him just being really confused about why he keeps getting called for fouls where he doesn't think he fouls, I'm not sure. But Cal said, the one thing I do know he's not giving up on him. He thinks he's going to need him in the tournament. So he's got, 7, 8 more games to develop before that? So we'll see.
Something like that. We're
6 games.
Around March 11th, I think, is the final
6 games left regular season if you play 2 SEC tournament games. So I give you 8 to get ready.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just been so inconsistent with their post play, and I do include Trevor Brazil in there with you and in Pringle. It just kind of ebbs and flows. Is there anything you could point to like, hey, they can use that with Pringle? I do like his toughness. I think we've seen some glimpses of that where I'm not going to get pushed around.
Yeah, and we've had 2 or 3 games where he played well, where he scored a lot. I think ultimately he's got to find it himself. But I also think it's on the coaches to figure out what it is. Yeah. I've been around coaches before when they're trying to do that, when they're trying to figure out what's wrong with a guy. And what always worked that I've seen, and I think it's a brilliant approach, you take one of his teammates and you tell him, look, when you're talking one-on-one to him, find out, don't put him under a microscope or act like he's on the witness stand, but just be talking with him and somehow get him to talking about what's going on, and then you'll find out what the deal is from his perspective.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what I'm just seeing offensively, and these guys, they take up a lot of space. Arkansas just doesn't have much offense in the post if it's not off of some type of action from the point guard. So if they're not catching lobs,
that's right,
it doesn't really seem like they have much of a presence down there scoring the basketball.
Yeah. I think Ewan sometimes he's a good distributor of the ball at times.
Yeah,
and when he gets in there, he can.
A good take,
he's fed Pringle a couple of times when they're in there together. That may be another issue. There is who is in the game with him. Yeah, who's on the floor with him.
I do think Ewan is a better handler of the ball with the vision. Some of the passes that he's made, we've seen some pretty good highlights this year. Next question coming from Kentucky Hog, who says, "I was worried when Florida started looking bad against Kentucky in the second half. I figured you must be watching. Then my wife saw on Twitter that you stopped watching the game. Thank you. We have second place now, and Big Blue dropped to third."
Okay.
Number 1 Kentucky hater in the state of Arkansas.
Yeah, I think I had mentioned before that I had seen several games this year in which Kentucky won, and I wasn't trying to take away from them, but the opponent just flat gave the game away. LSU had them beat. Had a big lead, had them beat, and just handed it to them. Said, here, we don't want to win this game. Tennessee did it twice. So I'm thinking to myself, so I tune into this Kentucky-Florida game because Florida needs to win that game. If they do, if Arkansas wins, boom, they're in second place all alone. So I tune in about 6-7 minutes into this game, first half. And Kentucky is down like by 15 points. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, that's going the way it should. And then I'm watching, and within 2 or 3 minutes on the clock, it's a 6-point game. I'm going, what is happening here? I mean, Florida just started looking ridiculous, doing things they don't do, trying stupid shots that have no chance of going in, turning the ball over, playing bad defense. I'm like, what? Florida, there's no way they'd be where they are right now if they played like this. Yeah. What are they doing? So I turned over to another game, and I got on Twitter and said, I'm not watching them anymore this year, ever. I am watching no Kentucky games. And I guess his wife saw that or something. And I don't know if it worked, but they won. Florida won, so whatever. I appreciate you saying that.
Even kind of the Arkansas game, you said, well, Kentucky, some teams laid down for them. Arkansas didn't lay down, but on that day they couldn't make shots.
Yeah.
Way too many fouls in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, it's just – and I'm perfectly willing to give Kentucky credit when they're forcing problems, when they're doing really good things. And I've seen them do that in stretches, but I'm telling you, in some of these games, they looked almost as bad as the team they beat. It was like, who's going to give this game away? Both of those Tennessee games were that way. And finally, in the last minute of that second game, Tennessee just completely collapsed, and Kentucky won the game. I just think Kentucky has gotten really lucky so far this year. I've seen them win some games that they didn't deserve to win. The opponent gave it away.
I'm smiling because Mark Pope's cool with lucky because lucky means that he might keep his job.
Yeah,
and
right.
if they limp into the tournament and they go one and done, you wonder if the pressure will just be too much and he'll be gone.
They're all happy with him right now, but you wait and see if they start having problems because their schedule gets a little tougher now.
I think a lot of ways that Arkansas game to them could be what the Kentucky game was to Arkansas last year. That we got rid of that guy. You were supposed to take us to new heights. You were supposed to embrace more about what Kentucky was, and now you're teetering. But I think he bought himself some equity with that win. Next question, I think we got a doozy here. Got some notes on this one. First up, we got Parallax Pig who asked, wondered which game was everyone watching? I'm watching baseball live, then basketball by DVR later. And he got his own response there. Hog Lady saying, I will have the basketball game on my TV and the baseball game on my laptop. And then Not Too Bright Mike, I hope I'm doing this right here, says basketball on TV, baseball on my phone, and one more here. Birmingham Hog says, I'll be at the baseball game with the basketball game on my phone and the phone plugged into a battery. Woo, pig suey. So a lot of questions about this, Mike.
Well,
it's never been easier to watch Arkansas sports, but maybe this weekend was a little bit difficult.
Well, I mean, it just shows how creative that they all were. And there were a ton of responses beyond those. And it was just like, wow, you guys. The best one is going to the game and having it on your phone so you can sit there and watch the baseball game live and watch the basketball game on your phone. Now, I was lucky. I was sitting right over there in the corner of this studio, and we got a monitor here and a monitor here.
Yep.
Which is good because I don't like watching like this. I don't know why, but if I'm watching two at one time, like when you do the split screen on your TV, but if it's like this, I can pick one out and sort of watch it. And it was a no-brainer. Basketball changes constantly. So you're watching that with no sound. Turn the sound up on the baseball game because if anything happened in baseball, the announcer would start yelling and then I'd know to turn over there. And it worked out all right. It still gave me a headache going back and forth like that. But, it's the way to do it.
Do you remember whenever baseball became a big deal here? Was it when they built the stadium? Because even early days of Baum Stadium, they're only playing, 2 games on local television, let alone national?
Yeah, if you're talking about putting the games on television, what happened was there were only 2 or 3 times a year ESPN would put you on TV.
And we're talking like late 90s-ish, early 2000s?
Like and so the U of A decided to televise some of these games on their own website. The athletic department had a website, and you could go on there. It was free. You didn't have to pay for it. You just clicked on it, and you could sit there and watch it on your computer. So I noticed that they were doing that, but I also noticed that they didn't have a center field camera. They had a camera on third base, camera on first base, and a camera up top.
Behind home plate.
But it was up top. It wasn't down low. It was up high. And so they had some good angles, but you've got to have that picture behind the pitcher that shows where the ball's going.
Traditional, all broadcast.
Yeah, what kind of pitch was that? Did he throw it fat over the plate? Was it a great pitch and reached out and hit it? What? So I went to him and said, hey, how about I put a camera out in center field? Because there was a platform out there that ESPN had put up for use.
I think in front of the batter's eye, right? Or something.
It was off to the right of the batter's eye. Now it's inside the batter's eye. But I said, I will bring my own camera and set it up if you will run cable out there to hook into your system. Mm-hmm. And I'll be responsible for that. But you're going to have to let me have that video because I'd much rather have the 4-camera shoot than a 1-camera shoot and stand there and try to shoot the game by myself like that. And they said, sure, we'll let you do that. So they ran the stuff out there and hooked it up. And what I did was I zoomed in it tight, locked that camera down, and never moved it. It was strictly the pitch. And then I told them, once the ball gets hit, you got to switch. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it should be done. And it worked really well for a long time. The only problem was that they had built this platform too low, and so it wasn't. You need to have a good shot of the pitch for either a right-handed or left-handed batter. You needed it up higher, and it needed to be moved over where the batter's eye was. Well, they weren't going to let me get in front of the batter's eye because they said that would mess up the batters. I complained about that for years, and finally, a long time after I stopped doing that, In fact, I think it was 2 years ago, Kevin Trainer told me that they'd cut a hole in the batter's eye and it built a platform behind there, and they're shooting now like I told them to. And now, if you watch a baseball game from Baum Stadium, you will see a really good picture, really good shot of the pitcher, and you'll be able to see both batters, right and left-handed batter. Won't be covered up by the pitcher.
Yeah, I remember we used to have the pool cam feed. That was my era here, like late 2000s, early 2010s, and that kind of evolved. Now everything's on TV. We were talking about something off the record, and we don't know exactly what all goes into this. But, what I saw this week, and I think we're going to talk more about the crowds coming up here in a little bit. You blown away that they're losing money on this program? Now again, there could be a lot of variables in play. They're paying off, that $50-some million facility, renovations to Baum, funding the sport. I get it. I do. But if they operated in the red, that doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there because they have jacked the ticket prices up and they're making more money off.
And again, maybe they're paying off buildings, things like that.
Could be, I'm not sure. Haven't asked that question yet. If I get asked that question.
Only Hunter was available to answer that
question. You ask it, so maybe I'll have to go find out. But I did notice that because they had always been right at or near the break-even point up until this latest thing. And we saw, I think, what did it say? They lost $5 million?
I think $3 million.
That's not a lot of money for baseball, but there are some people believe that they're not giving baseball enough NIL money and that ultimately it's going to hurt the program because people have noticed that LSU just goes to the portal and just portal jams all the time.
Yeah. In fairness, though, my understanding with that is not LSU's rev share money. And also, to my understanding, is very few baseball programs, if any in the country, are getting rev share money. That's just my understanding of people I talked to. I don't know how true that is.
It's probably true NIL money that they're just getting. But Arkansas has got to figure out a way to do that. Dave Van Horn's explanation was, he said, even if I had all the NIL money I needed or wanted, I would still recruit and try to develop freshmen. And we're going to get into a question here in a minute about all the freshmen he played against Texas Tech. He likes to do that. He likes to bring in freshmen and figure out, okay, which 3 or 4 guys can help us this year, because then next year as sophomores, they'll really help us.
Yeah, and a lot of those freshmen, if you get a chance, it's a cheaper ticket, a beautiful day midweek. Get out to one of those Tuesday, Wednesday games. Usually, a little bit more intimate there, a little bit of smaller crowd as the weather breaks. Fun time to see some of those, stars of the future. We're out of time here for this block. We got more to come right after a quick timeout. Back here with Mike Irwin, getting right into more of your questions here on this week's version of Ask Mike. We're talking baseball here. From Mousetown, it says, why not break Dietz in slower at the start of the season? He's been hurt and pitched less than 2 innings over the past 2 seasons. He pitched good in the scrimmage, but was clearly nervous against the Horned Frogs.
Yeah, and I've had some discussions with Razorback fans over the last several hours, especially this morning. One called me in particular, was really mad. Talked to somebody in the building that's a big fan. You got to understand it's something about Van Horn, and if you don't know it by now, he's been here, well over 20 years. You should have figured this out by now, especially early in the season. He's much less interested in winning games and more interested in finding out who needs to play where by the time you get to conference play.
And he said that on the record.
Yes, before they ever left, he said he was going to do that. Okay, here's Dietz, and the complaint about using him is this is his second year, third year, but the first 2 years, the first year he didn't pitch much and then he threw his arm out. So I think he had Tommy John's. Then he comes back the next year, and late in the year they tried to go with him and it still wasn't good, so they gave him the rest of that year off. Then all of a sudden he starts to get better. And in the fall and this spring he's looked really good. So I'm sure DVH said, look, you're ready. Let's see what you can do. The counter argument to that is this has nothing to do with whether he's physically ready. He hasn't been put in a situation like that before. Why don't you pitch him once you get back here to Fayetteville and let him play in a couple of games where there's not that kind of pressure before you stick him in front of 22,000 people. Yeah. But I'm sure Van Horn would say, I want to stick him in front of 22,000 people, and if he has a problem, I'll come up to him and say, no big deal, let's bounce back the next week. Because I figure he'll still be in the rotation. I don't think they're taking him out. He didn't pitch all that badly. He was just inconsistent.
The first 2 innings, and that's what really cost him the game.
Yeah, it cost him the game, and then there were some things they didn't do later on. But yeah, he had 5 strikeouts in 2 innings, but he also hit a batter and had 3 walks and gave up, I don't know, a double, a 2 RBI double, and 2 single base hits, I think, that scored RBIs. So it was up and down for him. But he'll be back. I don't think this means he's not in the rotation.
No, it's just one start. Even Gabe Gackle, second, third, fourth inning, tremendous. I think it was definitely the first, maybe the fifth inning was the other one. Kind of got away from it. You still, early in the season, they're working on a hard pitch count here the first, first month of the year. There's some things that they have to get through. Next question coming from Tarrant County Hog, who says, never liked losing to TCU. They've had our number lately. Sure have. But what a performance by Tate McGuire. 5 perfect innings. Start him, and we might have gotten a shutout. This is along the lines of what we were just talking about here.
Yeah, they brought him in the 5th. So he pitches 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. 4 innings, sat down all 12 batters. And what I liked was, he had 4 strikeouts, but that also means he had 8 pitch-to-contact outs. And I like guys that can do both. Way too many of Arkansas's pitchers, in my opinion, are strikeout guys. And
those are the draft prospects, the strikeout guys.
But they can't go as long in a game. You get a pitch-to-contact guy, and he can do it. And I think if they had brought him in a little bit earlier, like maybe a couple of innings earlier, they'd have won the game because he was fabulous.
Well, it's certainly, you look at it like, hey, if we'd have started the game, maybe, we win. We scored the last 4 runs of the game.
I don't know if they're looking at him as a starter or if they just think he's long relief, but he could have gone longer than he did if they'd just put him in earlier.
Yeah, and you, again, ebbs and flows. You see some movement here as this evolves. The Sunday starter becomes the Saturday starter. This great middle reliever earns his way into the rotation. There's, a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts that can happen, and they're only 4 games into the season here, wrapping up on Monday. Next question comes from Squid Billy, who says, story of the game. Hogs 1 for 19 with runners on, 1 for 13 with runners in scoring position. That's 1 for 19. That's got to be the whole weekend. That seems outrageous.
It is, but see, that's the part that wasn't talked about. Now, I got into a discussion with another friend of mine about this as a big baseball fan. But look, you ended up with, in that first game, in that TCU game, the top 4 guys in their order, I think, struck out 9 times. And in 5 of those strikeouts were with runners at scoring position. Those are your best hitters. Now, the same thing continued into the Texas Tech game. But in that game, Van Horn had removed Sousa and Aloy. Now, he said he removed Aloy because he had trouble after he hit that home run in the TCU game, and he said he noticed he was having trouble going around the bases. So he said, I'm not going to mess him up just for right now. So maybe he took him out as a precaution, but he removed Sousa for a reason that had not been explained. But it sounded like to me he just wanted to put a bunch of freshmen in there. So here's what the guy says to me. He's so arrogant that he thinks that Texas Tech is no good after watching them, so he can put all these freshmen in there and they'll still win. Yeah, if you don't know what he said before he left Fayetteville, you might agree with that. But he said he was going to do it. And so you get into this fan versus coach thing where the coach is trying to do what's best for the team long term, and the fans are sitting there. This one fan that was mad said, I'm sitting up there. He was at the game. He said, these TCU fans are yelling and saying all kinds of stuff to me, and I hate those guys, and I don't want us out there doing this stuff, Van Horn didn't try to win the game. He was just doing this and that, and blah. And I'm just telling you, the guy does not get that excited about these early season games. You may, as a fan, and I understand that, but he's still looking at what this team's going to be like a month from now when they start SEC play.
I got excited Friday night whenever they run-ruled Oklahoma State. And I thought, like, man, this team can do it all.
Yeah.
So.
And then some guy complained to me today. He said, I saw this clip where Nate Thompson was down there telling all those batters, no stopping, no red light, just go, go, go. And he said, what'd they do? They came out the next day against TCU and they're all swinging from their shoes and then watching strike 3 go right down the middle. That's an exaggeration, but, that's just fans.
Yeah, fan's gonna fan. Fan is short for fanatic. Never forget it here. Next question coming from Beth Jerry, who says 22,834 here in Globe Life. 22,000 are Hog fans. You're welcome, Globe Life Field, and TCU fans should be embarrassed. Quick aside, Arkansas, tremendous showing. Friday night, unbelievable. Saturday, also unbelievable. TCU did have a good number of fans. It's in their backyard. I think let's not throw too much shade here on
I'm not there, so I can't argue that point.
But Arkansas still, clear advantage in fans. No question.
Some guy on the internet said if you had the Flow Sports video and you watched the Oklahoma TCU game after the Arkansas Texas Tech game last night, you would have seen how many people left that stadium and what was left. And he said there was like nobody there.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't there, so I don't know if he's exaggerating, but that's what he said. The issue becomes, again, is the popularity of college baseball on the upswing? And the facts are there. It's just there. The College World Series, they've been drawing 23,000 for some of those big games for several years now. I think they could expand Omaha if they wanted to. Here's 22,000 fans at a major league stadium for an opening bunch of games at neutral sites.
In February, yeah.
So it's going up at a time when Major League Baseball viewership may be going down a little bit. I'm not sure. But understand that there's nothing wrong with the college sports being on the upswing. I like it. I've always liked college sports. I just don't like that it's become professional sports.
It was an awesome scene. My first time being down there. We actually shot a baseball special while the Vanderbilt LSU game was going on. Those out there that may have caught it, it kind of empty, and then Arkansas shows up and everything changes. Somebody at the university told me that Globe Life Field is so thrilled with what Arkansas brings them. They said, you guys have a home here. Anytime you want, as long as you want, we will sell a title sponsor. We will give you an event. We appreciate your presence so much. And in reflection of that, the crowds grow year after year after year. It's getting bigger. I think that was the most attended neutral site non-postseason college baseball game of all time.
That's what I heard.
On Saturday night, to over 22,000 fans. And I also saw this. That was the attendance on Saturday night, more than 9 Major League Baseball teams average per game last season. So
and I think the attendance in Omaha for the big game is around 24. So
kind of a bummer, though, if you've ever been there. I know you've been there. You get towards the later stages, especially if some of those prime fan bases get knocked out, and the crowds start to fade because you only got 2 teams left.
Depending on who those 2 teams are. Now, if they were LSU and Arkansas, whoosh, it would be full.
Yeah, or 2 Southern teams, but you're right, more of like a kind of mid-major type program, or not a traditional baseball power, a little bit smaller. All right, almost done here on Ask Mike. We got one final break, then we're back. Back here on Ask Mike, busy weekend for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Darius Acuff Jr., 7-time SEC Freshman of the Week. Diamond Hogs, great showing down in Arlington, winning 2 of their first 3 games. Arkansas softball also, man, really putting the wood to a couple teams. Next question here coming from Edward Clutch, who says, a few months ago, the U of A announced an NIL partnership with a company called The Link U. Short time later, another one called Choose Arkansas came along. The one the U of A is partnered with has barely a mention of Arkansas on its website.
And then he follows up.
Meanwhile, the unofficial one has announced deals with several athletes from multiple sports. It appears they have once again partnered with a company that is going to take a lazy approach. Why does the U of A keep dropping the ball in this NIL? This will make your head spin. Choose Arkansas, Arkansas Edge. I mean, they've had like 8 different names. This thing, changes names.
I'm going to try to explain
faster than a menu special.
I'm going to try to explain the difference. Choose Arkansas is a fan-based website that is not affiliated with the U of A, but the guy that runs it is a Razorback fan from Nashville, Tennessee, and he approached the U of A and said, I want to help. I want you to be able to do for you what's happening at Ole Miss with the fan grassroots NIL. And they said, well, you can't be officially affiliated with us, but they sent the rules to him. And the rules state that he has to do this for other schools. So he's doing it around the state. He's doing it, and he's already worked out several NIL deals for athletes at other schools in Arkansas. So he's following the rules. Okay, what they're doing is they're going with more low-dollar NIL direct payment to a player. I go and appear here, and you pay me to do that. It's not big money, but it's money.
A lot of volume, hopefully.
Yes, it's volume, and it's easier to arrange, because you're not dealing with big companies. You're dealing with a booster that has a company, or somebody like a barbecue place that wants you to come out and eat barbecue at your place.
Wright's Barbecue.
It's things like that. Okay, the other one, that's the part that's been difficult, because they have switched companies from one that really wasn't working at all to what they have now, Link U. I've checked that out and talked to people about that. Link U has a really good reputation. It's fairly new. Some of their clients, I think Baylor's one of their clients. I think Georgia may be a client, Alabama. Tennessee. So it's not just Arkansas that's using these people.
And some good brands there.
Yeah. But what they're doing is they deal more with large corporations. And think about this, because this is how you get a big NIL deal under the new rules that are supposed to exist. If you can get somebody that's a national company that will take an athlete for whatever reason and say, you're going to help us make money. If we pay you $400,000, you may be able to make us $1 million, and we'll do that. That's what this particular organization that is affiliated with Arkansas is trying to do.
After more Fortune 500 brands,
Yes,
things like that.
but what I was told is that takes more time. You just don't do that overnight. They've got to develop relationships. They've got to come in and find certain athletes on your campus and figure out, are they marketable beyond the state of Arkansas? Are they marketable beyond the fact that they're just Razorbacks? Because that's what a true NIL is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, you're so marketable as an athlete, a national company, will use you and pay you, and you're going to make me more money than I pay you. That's a true NIL. So I'll keep checking on this to see how this link you works. But that's what I'm told right now. Give it some time, and they think it will be doing good things for the U of A.
I like what I'm seeing too. It seems like with the concerts, maybe even Link U to a lesser extent, they're starting to think outside the box a little bit more.
Absolutely. And then as we've mentioned, the athletic department, the board of trustees stood up a couple of weeks ago and said, we got to do more than that. School's going to have to help. The days are over of the athletic department giving money to the school.
Give money back, yeah.
We benefit from having athletics on our campus, and they do. I'm telling you, all those kids, that enrollment increase that keeps going up, and they're building new apartments everywhere. That's coming from kids coming up here from Texas that are taking the in-state tuition fee. I'm told that right now, if you tried to go to Baylor or SMU or TCU or Texas or A&M or those Texas schools, you might pay 3 times as much in tuition as you do here.
Wow.
So they're coming up here. All right, they do want to come up here, but they want some kind of athletic thing going on. That's what students do. So, hey, we got to help you get better. So they'll also come up here because they like the athletics that we have here. We have a winning football program, basketball program, baseball program, softball program, soccer, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's been long overdue, and yeah, hopefully they can turn a corner. And as you're right there, it's a great point. Maybe Arkansas can use the cost of an education here to its advantage. You ain't getting 3 times the education by going to SMU. You could argue all you want about better school, but it's not 3 times better, nor is Baylor or
But
Texas.
it costs 3 times as much.
Exactly, and the bottom dollar is usually where your answer always lies. Next question here coming from WV Hog fan. It says, what percentage of players will play 4 or 5 years with the team that signed them out of high school, and how many teams will spend more time recruiting transfer players than recruiting high school players?
And then another answer. Okay, yeah. I thought there was another part of that.
That's your part.
Look, this is really hard to research because somebody like me can't go to all schools all across the country. That'd be a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I have other things I have to do. So I have to rely on the NCAA because they do research on this. The problem is they're way behind. The last data that I could get or could find on the number of athletes that come in, stay all the time, as opposed to those that transfer, was from 2023, so that's 2 years ago. It does appear that over the last 2 years, from 23 to 25, the numbers have gone up. But even back then, in football and basketball, it was somewhere between 30 and 40%. Now, it's also dependent upon the sport. They tend to transfer more in football and basketball than they do in some other sports.
Because there's more revenue.
Yes, more revenue, and there's more competition. The agents are out there trying to get more and more money. So let's just look at what Arkansas did in this last cycle. They brought in 42 portal transfers with 41 transferring out. That's more than half the team. Yeah. So that tells you where we're at right now. I think with the high school class, they ended up with 22, 21, 22, 23. So the portal was twice as big as the high school class. Now, getting back to what I said about Cal, and I also mentioned Van Horn, but Cal, he's right now, if you look at their roster, they only have 3 guys that came in here out of the portal. All the rest of them came in here as freshmen.
Pringle, Ewan.
Pringle, Ewan, and Brazil.
Oh, and Brazil's been here for a while, yeah.
He's been here for a while, but he came in out of the portal. So Cal is a guy that tends to say, okay, I'm going to bring in freshmen. So if you like that concept better than the portal thing, then you should like our basketball program and our baseball program, because they both do that. But I think with football, which is a much more physical sport, and it's much more important to have, especially when you're talking O-line, D-line, running backs, a lot of different people, even sometimes safeties. You have people that are mature and strong. And that's why I think in football in particular, you're seeing more and more it being a transfer portal thing. And their attitude seems to be, hey, you go play somewhere else. And that, I didn't even get into this part because he didn't ask about it. But the numbers of people at lower levels, like Group of 5 or even D2 that are transferring out, it's going through the roof. Yeah. Because if you go to that level and succeed, then those Power 4 programs are looking at you. Hey, we got this safety over here. Yep. Man, this guy had 6 interceptions last year. He knocked down 4 passes. He did this and that. We got to have that guy. And they don't care that he was at a lower level. He was probably at a lower level. Maybe in some cases it's academics, but in some cases maybe he developed physically.
He got overlooked.
He got overlooked, and now he's shown what he can do, and we're going to bring him in. So I think you're going to continue to see a lot of action in the portal with football because of the physical nature of the sport.
Next question from Dr. Strangepork. I believe it's the final one of the week here. Wants to know, with Coach Norm DeBriyn being inducted into College Baseball Hall of Fame and considering how long he's been associated with the U of A, do you have any memories about him you could share, baseball specific or not?
Yeah.
I played golf with him. Good dude.
Yeah. He's, when I was first here, and he'd been here maybe 1 or 2 years longer than I had, but when I was first covering baseball,
think about that.
He was really interesting. You go over to practice, and he watched practice from third base. Sometimes he would coach. If they were having a scrimmage, he'd be the third base coach. But he liked to stand over on third base because I think he felt like it gave him a view of everything that was going on. But I could come over there, and he'd start talking to me while he was coaching. And I was never one to interrupt a guy when he's doing his work, but sometimes he'd start talking to me, come on over here. And so we'd start talking. And what I noticed about him was he could be having a perfectly normal conversation with you, and then he'd see something out of the corner of his eye, and he'd just start screaming at some guy. Hey, what are you doing over there? Get over there in the dugout. You just send a guy.
Eyes in the back of his head.
Yeah. And then he'd be back to normal again. And I just got kind of used to that. Now, the other thing that was going on back then, and this as the years went by, Frank Broyles always had this reputation when he was the athletic director. You never knew when he was going to fire a coach. He fired coaches left and right. And I think all of the coaches on campus sort of walked around on tiptoes. But Norm in particular, he would always talk to me and he'd say, and he had an office on the second floor of the Broyles Center in those days. And I would go down there a lot of times just to get story ideas. And what I would do is I'd walk along, and if I saw a door open to a coach's office, and he said hi to me and acted like he wanted to talk, I would talk to him. If he kept his head down, I'd keep going. So I walked by Norm's office one day, and he said, hey, and he's talking. So I go, and I'm standing next to the door, and I'm talking to him. Yeah. I knew that year they had just gone out to Hawaii. Arkansas just went to, they've been going to Arlington to play indoors.
Yeah, they used to do a West Coast trip.
Yeah, they used to go out to Arizona. They used to go out to get, Norm's wife is from Hawaii. She knew some people out there, and they figured out a way to make the trip out there and make it cheaper than it normally would be.
They got to bring that back.
Yeah. So they went out to Hawaii. Well, Norm knew that Frank didn't like that. He felt like that was unnecessary, spend too much money flying all those players out there. And Norm told me that. He said, I think Frank's really mad at me. And I knew that it had happened. So I walk by his door, and I see him, and he's talking, and I start going into my Frank Broyles voice, and I said, Norm, if you ever do that again, you're out of here. I'll fire you. I'm not putting up with that. You can't spend that kind of money.
You got a good Broyles impersonation. I can't impersonate myself, but you got a good impersonation there.
So I'm doing this, and Norm's laughing, and all of a sudden his face froze. It just froze. He's like, Ugh. I'm going, what's going wrong with you? And all of a sudden I realize Frank's standing right behind me. I'm like, oh no. So I'm thinking Frank's going to be mad at me because he thinks I'm making fun of him. Norm was thinking Frank's going to be mad at me because I'm sitting here while the guy's making fun of him. We're both in trouble. Actually, what Frank did was, if he did know what was going on, he didn't act like it. He just, hey, what are you guys doing? You know, you having a good time? And then he just walked off like nothing ever happened. And nothing ever came of it. Norm wasn't in trouble, and Frank wasn't mad at me. But it was just one of those moments where you're trying to be a smart aleck, and it backfires on you. And I will never forget Norm laughing, and then his face just locks up instantly.
Story time with Mike Irwin. That's got to be a new segment here on Big Trump. Mike remembers, something like that. We got to come up with more ideas for you to share some of these stories.
Well, I don't always remember them. But.
Well, you know what? Sometimes the embellishment can make them even better. You know, you add your, the telephone, telegram, tell anyone who'll listen. That could evolve.
That one's real, I promise you. But there are things I never forget, and that moment is something I'll always remember.
Did you ever make a pitch to the old employer there across the street about like, hey, we got to cover this baseball team in Hawaii? That sounds like a great trip. We can get some good information out of them.
I actually went to Hawaii once to cover the golf team because the golf
NCAAs
coach
or something.
Yeah, he agreed to fly me out there if I would put together a video of the golf teams, what they did out there. He wanted to use it for recruiting. I cleared it with the people I work for. Yeah, I went out to Hawaii for a week. It was nice.
We got to get the Razorbacks playing a football game in Hawaii. I know Cal's anti-Maui.
Is he?
Which in Maui, the jet lag and what it kind of does to you there. So they've done multiple other things with preseason tournaments or how they schedule. So
he likes going up to the Northeast.
Yeah, and I get that. Hey, from here you're talking a 12-hour charter? Well, maybe not that. 9-hour charter. That's a long ways coming back, 3 games. So, but I want a trip to Hawaii.
It's a trip, man. It's a good place to go.
Yeah. Mike Irwin, that's it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll be here each and every Monday. Thank you for checking us out.